Sometimes the smallest act of courage comes from someone who has nothing to lose, yet ends up giving everything. If you believe kindness still exists, take a second to like this video, subscribe to Everyday Heroes, and share your thoughts below, because your words might touch someone's heart today. It was one of those quiet afternoons when the world seems to have forgotten it's still spinning. The small town of Ridgewater lay under a pale sun, the streets half empty, the air smelling faintly of coffee and gasoline. Outside Marty's diner, beside the garbage bins, sat a boy no one really noticed anymore. His name was Eli, 12 years old, thin as a whisper, his hair dusty, his jeans torn at both knees. He didn't beg. He never did. He simply sat there, cross-legged, tracing shapes in the dust with a broken stick. Eli had been homeless for almost a year. His mother had passed away the winter before, and his father, a man lost to addiction, had disappeared somewhere down the interstate, leaving behind a son who learned too early what loneliness meant. People in town had grown used to seeing him. Some felt sorry for him, others pretended not to see him at all. The diner owner, Marty, sometimes left him a half sandwich at the back door, and the waitress, June, would quietly refill his plastic water bottle. But no one ever asked his story. No one ever sat beside him. That day, Eli was hoping to earn a few coins helping customers carry their shopping bags, but fate had something else in store. Around noon, the silence shattered. Engines, loud, deep, and wild, rolled into town. The people turned their heads. Some frowned, some smiled, but everyone stopped to look. A group of Hell's Angels had just parked in front of the diner. The sight of a dozen heavy bikes glinting under the sun was enough to make any passerby stare. They walked in, leather vests, tattoos, thick boots, the kind of men you didn't want to mess with. And leading them was Reed. Reed was in his late 40s, tall, strong, with eyes that had seen too much and hands that carried both scars and stories. His voice was gravel. His tattoos told of wars fought on the road and inside his own heart. While his brothers went inside the diner, Reed stayed back, smoking near his Harley. He looked like the kind of man who could silence a room just by standing in it. But there was a quiet sadness in his posture, the kind only the broken recognize. Eli watched from his spot near the bins, fascinated. The bikes, the noise, the power, it was everything his small world lacked. Then he noticed something fall. A brown leather wallet, thick, old, full of cash and cards, had slipped from Reed's back pocket as he leaned on the bike. Eli froze. He looked at it, then at Reed. He could have taken it, no one would know. That money could buy him food for weeks. But he didn't even hesitate. He picked it up, ran toward Reed, and said softly, "Sir, you dropped this." Reed turned. His eyes narrowed, scanning the boy. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he took the wallet, stared at it, then at Eli again. "You didn't take anything?" Reed asked. Eli shook his head. "No, sir, it's yours." Reed grunted, almost a smile, but not quite. He pulled out a $20 bill and held it out. Eli shook his head again. "I didn't do it for that," he said quietly, and then he walked back to his corner by the dumpster, sat down, and went back to drawing shapes in the dust. Reed watched him for a long moment before walking into the diner. Inside, the bikers were loud, laughing, teasing, clinking their coffee mugs. But Reed wasn't really there. His mind kept drifting back to that boy outside. He'd met a lot of people in his life, fighters, liars, thieves, survivors, but he hadn't met many who would turn down free money. When he stepped out again, Eli was still there. "Hey, kid," he called out. Eli looked up, cautious. "You got a name?" "Eli." "You got somewhere to be, Eli?" "Not really," he said, his voice small but steady. Reed nodded slowly, then said, "You ever need a meal? Tell Marty to put it on my tab. Got it?" Eli blinked in surprise. "Why?" "Because you did right by me," Reed said simply, tossing his cigarette and climbing back on his bike. Eli watched the engines roar away, the dust rising behind them like smoke from a promise. That small kindness, just a meal, just a moment, stayed with him. He didn't know that in a few hours he would repay it in a way no one could have imagined. It was evening when it happened. The sky had turned orange, and Eli was sitting by the alley near the gas station. 3 older boys walked by, local troublemakers who liked to pick on the weak. They'd seen Eli before. To them, he was easy sport. "Hey, trash boy," one of them jeered. "Still digging in bins?" Eli ignored them. That only made it worse. One shoved him, another kicked over his backpack. Then one of them pointed across the street where the Hells Angels bikes were still parked near the diner. "Hey, look, Eli's guarding his biker friends," he laughed. "What are you now, their pet?" They started mocking Reed. Club, ugly words loud enough for Eli to hear. Something inside him snapped. He didn't think. He didn't plan. He just stood up and threw a punch. It wasn't much of a punch, just a boy's small hand hitting anger with everything he had. But it was enough to start a fight he couldn't win. They hit him hard, in the ribs, the jaw. He went down, tried to get up, went down again. And that's when Reed, who had come back to grab his jacket, saw it. In seconds, Reed was across the street. He grabbed the first kid by the collar, yanked him away. "Back off," he growled. His voice was low, dangerous. The teens froze. They weren't expecting anyone to step in, especially him. Within seconds, they were gone. Reed knelt beside Eli, who was bleeding from his lip, his arm scraped, his eye swelling. "Kid, what the hell were you thinking?" he muttered. Eli tried to smile. "They said bad things about your club. About you. I just wanted them to stop." Reed stared at him, this tiny, trembling boy who had nothing, and felt something heavy break inside. All his life he'd been called a criminal, a thug, a monster, and here was a homeless kid who saw him as someone worth defending. Reed swallowed hard. "Come on, let's get you to a hospital." The nurse at Ridgewater General didn't know what to make of it, a burly biker carrying a battered kid in his arms, shouting for help. Eli was treated for a broken arm, a bruised rib, and a mild concussion. He drifted in and out of sleep, and every time he woke up, Reed was still there. He didn't leave. Not that night, not the next. When the other bikers heard what had happened, they came too. One by one, they showed up, bringing snacks, toys, blankets, anything they could find. By evening, a dozen Hells Angels filled the hospital corridor. By the next day, 100. And by the weekend, 1,000 bikers from across the state rolled into town. The sound of engines thundered through the streets like a heartbeat. People came out of their homes astonished. Some waved, some cried. The town that once ignored the homeless boy now couldn't look away. Reed stood by Eli's hospital bed, his rough hand resting gently on the boy's chest. "You're one of us now, kid," he said quietly. Eli blinked, half awake. "One of you?" "Family," Reed said simply, "the kind that doesn't walk away." When Eli was discharged, the bikers escorted him home, though home was just a word then. Reed arranged a small apartment for him near the diner, paid the rent, and told Marty to keep feeding him. No tabs, no charity, just respect. And every weekend, the bikers came back. They taught Eli how to fix bikes, how to ride, how to belong. He laughed again. He smiled. He started living. If this moment touched you, tap like and help us spread more kindness in the world. The people of Ridgewater began to notice. The same ones who used to walk past Eli started stopping by to talk. Local kids who once mocked him began helping him clean bikes. And when the mayor saw what the bikers had done, the fundraising, the repairs to the old orphanage they sponsored in Eli's name, he called it the most beautiful thing that's ever happened in this town. The newspaper headline read, 1,000 bikers ride for a boy who once had no one. But for Reed, it wasn't about headlines. It was about redemption. He told one of his brothers, "All my life I thought respect came from fear. Turns out it comes from kindness." Months later, Eli handed Reed a folded piece of paper. Reed opened it. Inside were the words written in shaky handwriting, "Thank you for showing me that family isn't who you're born to. It's who shows up when you're broken." Reed read it twice, maybe 3 times, before slipping it into his wallet. The same wallet Eli had once returned. He kept it there for the rest of his life. Whenever someone asked him why he carried it, he'd just smile and say, "Because this kid saved me, twice." Years passed. Eli grew taller, stronger. He became a mechanic at Reed's garage, fixing bikes with the same hands that once trembled from hunger. And every year on that same cold afternoon, 1,000 bikers rode through Ridgewater, engines roaring not in anger, but in love, to to visit the hospital, donate to shelters, and remind people that kindness isn't weakness. It's strength, the quiet kind. If you're still watching, this moment means something to you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us, because stories like this are what keep kindness alive. One night, long after the town had gone to sleep, Reed and Eli sat outside the diner where they first met. The neon light flickered softly on their faces. "You ever think about that day?" Eli asked. "Every damn day," Reed said with a laugh. "You think you saved me, but kid, I think you saved this whole town." Eli smiled, eyes glistening. "Guess we both got lucky then." Reed nodded. "Yeah, lucky and loved." They sat in silence, the hum of the streetlights blending with the distant sound of a motorcycle on the open road. And for once, everything felt right. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Everyday Heroes, and tell us in the comments, when was the last time kindness changed your day?